Hi, it's Lori from Coast to Coast Craft Girls coming to you from the West Coast. Today I'm going to show you how to make these fun aperture cards. As you can see, the image is stamped onto acetate in the aperture, and then you can open it up. It's just kind of a fun card. It's not hard to make, but really fun. So let me show you how to do that. So we start with our 5x7 card blank, and we need to go ahead and get the matte layers on there. And this is actually from the paper pad. This is from the Crafter's Companion 'Tis the Season paper pad, and I'm gonna use it like that. So I'm gonna cut, this is 5x7, so I always cut just 1/4 of an inch less. So I need 6 3/4 that way. And let's see, stop half. So I should have got my bigger one. I have to guess at 6 3/4. That's close enough. And then this way, it's 5, so I need 4 3/4. Let's see how well I guessed. Yeah, that looks good. And to cut the aperture, I want to cut the aperture in both pieces. And to make sure that you get the aperture cut in the right spot in both pieces, the easiest way I found to do that is to use your dotty tape pen and just put one tiny little piece of tape, or a couple of dots of tape in there, so that you can decide which way you want it. I'm going to put it this way. Get it nice and centered. And don't worry about it. I mean, you can glue it down all the way if you want, but I don't like to do that because then you have to make sure you get it nice and glued all the way, and it's just, I find it easier to do it this way. Now you're going to open it up and cut your aperture. And I used these nesting dies, and while I've still got them taped together, I'm going to go ahead and cut my frame first. So I need to cut, so as you can see, I cut a gold frame first, and then cut the aperture with the small one. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the frame first. Find some gold mirror card. Love these luxury card packs. They were on such a great sale recently. I think it's time for a new MIDI folder. What do you think? It's getting pretty bad. Still works, but it's getting harder and harder to get stuff to stick in there. All right, so I'll save this for another project. And then there's my frame. That's going to go on the outside of the aperture. So I got to cut the aperture. So to cut the aperture, I just want the inside one. The smaller of the two. And you're just going to center it up or put it wherever you want it. Just kind of eyeball it into the middle. Now to get this to go through, I gotta use my bigger plates. There we go. Okay. And just take those out. And then I saved this inside piece because I put that on the inside of the card. So just take that tape off really carefully. And then you just want to remember which way this was. Because if I spin it around, see, I obviously didn't get the die cut right in the middle. So you want to make sure you keep it the same direction. And then you can peel these apart, and there's just a little bit of that dotty tape, and you can just usually just rub it right off. Well, it's not gonna, I think my fingers are dirty. It's not gonna come off of there, but it's not on the pattern paper, which is nice. I'll just use this for a matte layer anyway, so I'm definitely keeping that. Now we're gonna mount this onto there, but before we do that, we're gonna get the acetate ready because we wanna put the acetate in between those two layers so it doesn't show. So let's set all that to the side and we'll get our acetate out. Now let me cut this down to about 4 1/4. And now we're going to stamp and heat emboss. Keep all the stuff to the side. Let me find my stamping platform. And hopefully you can see that. This is just heat resistant acetate because we're going to heat emboss it. So get it in there. And I'm going to use a Christmas tree stamp. I think this came from one of the Christmas, what were they called? Like the mixed media packs where it had like different items, and I can't remember what it was called. And I'm gonna use gold. Let me find my gold. So I have some gold embossing powder and my gold Midas pigment ink pad. And you can see I store my foam applicators in my little finger dauber right on top. Get it nicely inked. Okay, got a nice impression. Quickly wipe that stamp. Set this aside. And before this dries, put my gold embossing powder on there. Get it nice and covered. And you can see I use my white multi-purpose card front page for this. I find it works really well because it's got a little bit of a coating to it. So it kind of helps the embossing powder slide right off. Put the lid on that before I make a mess with it. And then we're going to heat this up. Now let the heat gun get hot before I put it on there, because if you put it on when it's not hot, you have to hold it on there longer, and it's more likely to cause the acetate to kind of curl. You'll find once the embossing powder starts to melt, it goes really quickly. And I got it all. And it's not too warped, so that's good. And then I'm going to color it in on the back. So this is the side that I heat emboss. So this is the side that is not embossed, and I'm going to color it in on that side. And I'm going to use my gold yellow, blend the middle tone for the star on the top. When you're coloring reverse like this, you definitely want to use alcohol markers, and you generally want to use the darker shades. Like the light shades do not show up well. So you tend to use either the middle or the dark of your tri-blends, or some of the higher number of other. And then we're just gonna color this in. And I'm actually gonna try this is my Alpine Green. I'm gonna try yeah, definitely want the darker color. So this is AG5, Alpine Green 5. And I'm gonna color all the way, but I'm gonna leave the little circles not colored, because I'm gonna come back and color those in with red. Or you could put gems on them, or actually, you know, maybe I'll put some glitter glue on there. That would be good. So you just want to color. And it's actually very forgiving coloring, because you don't have to shade and highlight. And you don't, I mean, you can if you want, but it's kind of hard to do, because to make it a darker shade, you just kind of want to go over it more than once. And then be aware that sometimes your pen strokes will show through on the other side, so try to make it strokes in the direction that you want it to go. Like, you know, the branches are coming down, so I'm going to come down this way as opposed to this way across. Then I'm using Earth Brown 3 for the trunk, which I could probably use a darker brown, but I'll just put a couple coats on. It'll be fine. Then I'm going to use dark red, DR4, for the ornaments. Okay, and when you flip it over, it looks like that. Looks really nice. Now, we're going to mount so we're going to glue this inside of the Aperture, but underneath this paper. So we're just going to basically stick it down on top of the front. Get a tape pen. And you just want to center it up within the Aperture. And then if it's warped at all, just try to smooth it out as you press it down. And I've found even the heat-resistant acetate sometimes does kind of warp a little bit with the heat. So, like it's got a little wrinkle in there. Try and get out. There. Well, that's better. Okay, and then we're going to put this on top of there. And I put a little bit of tape pen and a little bit of tacky glue. And again, remember to get it the right side up, because unless you cut your aperture perfectly in the middle, it's going to matter which you want to put it back the same way you cut it. And I've never once gotten mine in exactly the right spot when I cut, so it does matter. So mine was this way, and you just want to line it up again. And if you line up the aperture, you should have your matting and layering 1/4 inch perfect. Right on there. Then I'm going to put my frame on. Now, if you wanted to ink the edges of your card or do another layer, matte layer in there, you could do that. I think I did ink the outside edges on the last one, but I don't think it's necessary. But you just want to get good tacky glue down on to get the frame put in. Just line it up, and it should fit perfectly because it was cut with exactly the same die. There you go. Now, you could leave it just like that, or you could put the paper back on in the center of it if you want. And the way to do that, you can do it with this side, or you could flip it over if you have a good coordinating. A lot of times the paper pads have really pretty coordinating paper on the other side, and I actually kind of like that, even though the colors are not exactly a great match, but I do like that. So I found that the Kalal all-purpose glue works perfectly for this situation because it gives you more time to wiggle it into place. So let's put a little bit of I need to put this glue into a smaller bottle. I like the 250 ml bottles for because they last longer, but I always get way too much glue out. And then kind of get it in what you think is the right spot, and then you can kind of close the card and shift it around if it's not exactly right. And that looks just about perfect. When you get it perfect, but that's why I like that Kalal glue, because it gives you a minute gives you time to move it around, whereas the tacky glue grabs too quick for me. It takes me longer to get it in the right spot than the tacky glue has to. And there you go. You can add a sentiment or a bow. On mine, I used the Christmas corners, and debating. Now I think I'll just put a sentiment on there. or maybe a bow instead of the Christmas corners. But that's basically it. You can put a sentiment down here or up here, or a bow there and a sentiment there, or some jewels on it if you want. The other thing that I was thinking about doing, but I'm not sure if I'm going to, is right here on inside those ornaments, you could put a little dab of glitter glue or some little jewels on there if you wanted to. But that's really it. Hope you like that. It's a fun card to make, and it's not very difficult to do, really. Well, enjoy. Have a good evening. Bye.